Hey, Chamber members, Alan Waters here, your Director of Marketing and Communications here at the Chamber of Commerce and your Words of Wisdom podcast. Today I'm joined by
Matt Fonseca with Fonseca Insurance.
Welcome. So, Matt, the first question I ask absolutely everybody is, what does success mean to you?
I would say success would be working towards what is good, beautiful, and true.
Okay. And so I like to dive down into that a little bit more, looking at the personal side versus the professional side, because to me, they are one and the same. I'm a big believer in work-life balance, but I also believe that no one has that right answer. It's different for everybody. We're always struggling with it. So tell me about success and how that really impacts you on the personal side, and then we'll dive into a little bit more on the professional.
Yeah. So on the personal side, like what is good, beautiful, and true? So I think that everyone has the ability to just kind of look at themselves and think, what is the highest possible good that I could be striving towards? And then if you are orienting yourself towards that, the rest of those pieces tend to just fall into place. Mm-hmm. And you can, and the other part of that, like the beautiful part, right? Like making it look good.
Yeah.
That plays into getting other people to buy into your vision as well, right? Mm-hmm. So you might think it's good, but other people may not see that. And so it's important. Like we don't exist in a vacuum. We're a part of a community. We're a part of a people that, maybe you're working towards something really good, but no one else sees the good that it's doing. And therefore you're not going to have a whole lot of success. People aren't necessarily going to be reaching out to you to try and help and things like that. And then as far as true, if you might think it's good and beautiful, but if it's not true, then there's not really a purpose. Like you're not actually achieving what you're setting out to. Mm-hmm. You're achieving something that's fake. It's like quicksand, standing on quicksand.
So how does that impact as you go into the professional world? How does it change any for you when you're looking at success for a personal reason versus a professional reason? Or is it just about, one into the other?
It doesn't change. It's the same. So I'll put it this way, like in my personal life, what is good, beautiful, and true has to do with my faith, has to do with, giving back to the community that I love. That also plays into work. That also plays into profession. So if I, anything I do in business has to be, put it this way. If what I'm doing in business doesn't ring true, it doesn't resonate with me, then there's not a point to it. Like it's just it's the exact same thing. So right. I don't see a difference necessarily. I would say obviously like, maybe the motives are a little different, okay. Right? So like what is the highest good that I can think of in business would be creating a win-win situation where my clients are winning and I'm winning and I'm able to, get advantaged and move ahead.
Right.
So
for anyone listening, explain what you do for work and those pieces as well so that they know.
Yeah. So Fonseca Insurance, we are a new firm. I've been an insurance agent since 2017, but I've decided to delve a little bit deeper into what insurance really is. So insurance is the transfer of risk. That's the textbook definition. If anyone out there is about to take an insurance exam, write that down because that's one of the questions. What is insurance? It's the transfer of risk. So really, it's a tool belt. It's a tool in the tool belt to mitigate risk. So what we are at Fonseca Insurance, it says insurance in the name, mostly because that's often our in. That's what people come to us for. But what we really are is risk managers.
Okay.
So we try to calculate the probability, and the likelihood of adverse risk or positive risk, calculate and quantify the impact of that, and then help our clients prepare for it. So a lot of times that's through insurance. Mm-hmm. I think one of the most basic things that a person needs, I think every person, especially in a community, like in an area that's so car dependent that we are, like having car insurance is it's a pretty big need. So that's a good place to start. But where we really focus is on the commercial side and dealing with helping businesses plan for the future, not just in what we can insure, but in all the different aspects that could that's uncertain.
Right. So with a small business, I feel like there's so much of it that just naturally is risk. Would you say that as you're sitting down and you're talking to the business owners, is there a certain amount of risk aversion that you're trying to manage, or is it more of looking at, all right, these are the things and these are the things, the risks you've taken. Mm-hmm. Now let's make sure that we are protecting those as much as we possibly can.
Yeah. So there's positive risk and there's negative risk, right? So like positive risk, I think most people, when they think of positive risk, it's like an investment, right? Mm-hmm. So when you, and I'm clear cut, I am not a financial advisor. Nothing I say is financial advice.
Yeah.
But there's positive risk. Most people would associate that with like an investment. So you starting a small business is an investment into your future. It's an investment in your community, and it doing well is risk, right? Mm-hmm. Like that, it's a positive risk. We want to calculate the likelihood of it doing well. We want to maximize the impact of it doing well. And we want to plan for that. But just like that, we also want to plan for the inverse of that. And like, what happens if things aren't going well? How can we prepare for, like, protect what the risks you've taken, but also like calculate just how risk averse do you need to be versus how risk tolerant can you be? Mm-hmm. Because if you've done all the things to prepare for all of these adverse risks that are kind of the background of what you're doing, you can be a lot more risk tolerant in your main objective.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about what your process looks like and some of the things that you think people, particularly business owners, aren't really aware of. I'll give an example to go into this. When I was getting ready to travel to Germany earlier this year, I sat down and I thought about it, and we were looking at what camera we were going to take with us. And I was like, man, I need to make sure this is insured, because if something happens and I get back and I don't have this camera, it's going to impact the rest of my year. Thank God I did, because then when it came time, when we were on our way back, it got left in a taxi.
Yeah.
And if I had not done that insurance, I would have been up a creek. So what are business owners, what do they need to actually think about and look at? And what are some things that you do that they may not already be doing?
Yeah. Well, that would be like operational risk. There's a logistics element to that of like where you're moving, you're traveling to Germany. So already there's risk of it gets lost in the luggage. Let's say, if you check that bag, I mean, you're not in control of it. So now there's an unknown, uncontrollable element, that you can't foresee. And most of the time airlines are pretty good about it, but for every person that, everyone knows some horror story of someone losing their luggage. The luggage went to the wrong plane. Yeah. Or it's just gone somehow. We put it on the plane, but now
it's like the sock in the dryer and somewhere.
Well, and to them it's a sock in the dryer, which because it's like how many millions of bags are airlines processing every day. It's insane. So hopefully, your bag gets there on time. And then you probably also thought about, what if I left it in a taxi? You probably did think about that. Or something like that. What if it gets stolen? If I get, I'm in a different city, I don't know the culture. What if somebody, mugs me, something like that? There's so many different things that could happen. That's great foresight to see, ahead of time. Like, if I lose this camera, that's a big operational risk to what I do on a day-to-day, not just in the trip, but in my day-to-day that could impact. Something that business owners probably aren't aware of. Something like a lot of people don't realize, for instance, that there are compliance, ADA compliance. So if you don't know what that is, it's the Americans with Disabilities Act. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't realize that applies to websites. Mm-hmm. So for instance, like the text on your pictures on your website, if they don't have a description, that can be problematic for somebody who's blind, who wants to shop on your site, right? So knowing that, it's a very, very important to... they can make some money by filing a complaint. They can make some money through lawsuits. So that right there is an important piece. So one of the ways that I help with that would be like, cyber liability program policy. That's one way that helps. But also and I don't build websites, but let me get you a referral to somebody I know who can help you make sure your website's compliant. So there's a lot of opportunities that I look for to partner with other businesses to help support and foster that resiliency. You asked about the process, though. So our process starts by identifying things like that, right? So we want to go look in whole at the sum totality of a business. I want to look at your website. I want to look at your operation. Where, do you have a storefront? Are you brick and mortar? Do clients come, do you have clients come to your home? If you work from home, all the different avenues that could be a potential risk, what kind of training are you doing with your people for safety, things like that? What kind of compliance rules govern your business? Certainly a real estate firm is going to have rules that govern them from the MLS, from the National Association of Realtors, things like that. How can we make sure? And then OSHA, which, OSHA compliance is a big thing. Every construction site needs to make sure of that. But also, what are some of the risks that keep you up at night? I want to identify as much as I can. Then the next part of the process is to prioritize those things. So we're going to start with the likelihood. What's the likelihood of something like this happening? Well, I can tell you right now, if you're not training your employees, let's say in the example of OSHA, if you're not training employees on safety, then the likelihood of a problem with OSHA is going to be a lot higher.
Yeah.
Same thing with really anything. I mean, there's all sorts of ways to mitigate first the likelihood, but then also the impact, and what's the potential for this to impact your business, and would it be catastrophic or would it be a minor annoyance? And quantifying those, we'll put a score. In a case of a very small business, we usually use a smaller scale. 1 to 5 is usually pretty adequate. How likely is this on a scale of 1 to 5? Times that by how impactful is this on a scale of 1 to 5? That gives us a rough number to prioritize things. So we can start ranking in priority those things. And then from there, we think about what is the purpose of, what is the most prudent way to manage that risk, and have a plan in place, even, identify key employees. That can be a major thing with that. Does your social media team need to be cued in on a potential for reputational risk? There's a lot of different things that factor into that. And the more moving parts, the more in depth that is. So that's our process. Insurance is one part of that, to mitigate impact, but really we're focused on the whole totality of a risk for a business.
I appreciate mentioning the ADA aspect, especially when looking at websites. And I'm a shameless plug on this because we just had a small business workshop on business law, and that was one of the things that got brought up. And it came back to the likelihood aspect. And he said, yes, some of these things, depending on your website, anyone could go on, file a complaint, and make an issue. What is the likelihood of that happening? Looking at the chamber site versus someone who's e-commerce, it does shift dramatically. And being aware of those things, because yes, it's something that everyone needs to be doing, but it's also looking realistically. He even pointed out, he was like, as a lawyer looking at my website, I couldn't tell you that it's fully within compliance because it's not my job. I have people who are responsible for that. So yes, finding the right people, getting the right experts, and there's a reason that we go to so many different people. And hey, that's why you're here at the chamber. We're going to take a quick break. And then when we get back, I want to dive into what got you here and what that journey has been like, and where you want to go from here as well.
Sounds good. Look forward to it.
Awesome. Fonseca Insurance's mission is to be your steadfast partner, standing shoulder to shoulder with individuals and businesses against all peril, to navigate risks and build resilience for personal and commercial success. Expert risk management advice combined with insurance products from over 160 carriers is what sets Fonseca Insurance apart. For more information, visit fonsecainsurance.com. That's FONSECA insurance.com. Now, back to the episode. All right, we are back. So tell me about your journey and how you've gotten to Fonseca Insurance. Because, it's spoiler alert for those listening. When I met you just a year ago, you were with a different company. And so I know that there are a lot of things that go into creating your own. How has that journey been? But also, what led you here? When you graduated high school, what was the thing of, this is what I want to do?
Yeah. Well, it certainly wasn't insurance. And risk management was not a phrase that 18-year-old me had any concept of.
Yeah.
I was the most risk tolerant and recklessly risk tolerant person I know of. I think
it's like every 18-year-old. I mean, I talked about on a recent episode with banks, and it was the same thing. It was like not many people graduate high school going, I want to work for a bank or I want to do this. So yeah, 100%. Who's not an 18-year-old kid that doesn't think they're indestructible?
I'm sure there's probably a lot of people. I would gather a large portion of chamber members probably like, man, 18-year-old me would not have picked this.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. That's. But it's funny how we fall into things and we learn things that we like. I started out at 18 in sales. Actually, I'll back up a little bit. At 17, I paid for my first car by selling cups in the high school, and I got in trouble for it at Christiansburg High School. Shout out Mr. Miller for giving me those cups. But he, so there were these cups that said "Go Big Blue" on them, and the band was trying to give them away at games. They couldn't do it. So I said, I will graciously take a case of those off your hands. And me and another person went around and I started selling them for 50 cents a piece. And I made it turn to profit. And then I realized that, actually, I can sell things. Like I can sell a cup that people couldn't give away. That's probably a talent. So I got into sales. First, I sold everything from TV to cars, used cars, worked at several dealerships in the area. And then eventually I found my way in insurance. I had a mentor of mine actually mention insurance. He said, I wasn't really looking to go to college. It just wasn't in the cards for me, at least at that time. Now I think an education would benefit a little bit more. So I'm actually going back to school a little bit right now, but for the things that I want to study, not for things that not because I have to, but because let me study what I want to study here. And what's going to actually help me as a business person. But the second thing is, he mentioned insurance. He said, if you want to be independently wealthy, you don't want to go to college, I highly recommend you look into real estate as an investor or look into insurance. And the reason is because for anyone who doesn't know, insurance pays residual income. It pays renewals, right? What I didn't, and I thought, man, that sounds really great. And the first place I signed up for was Aflac. I had a good time at it, but I didn't really make a ton of money. And then ended up going back and forth between that and car sales for a little bit. Eventually, I decided that what I really needed was some discipline. So I went off and did the most disciplined thing I could think of, and I joined the Marine Corps. That was the best and worst decision of my life. It's been good because it really, I credit the Marine Corps with a lot. It exposed me to a lot of different things, exposed me to different cultures. It got me out of Appalachia, which was able to come back to Appalachia with a new love. But it got me out of my bubble and my sphere. And I was able to meet some really interesting people from all over the country, outside of our country even. Mm-hmm. And also, one of the things that I did was I learned risk management. So I learned how to calculate risk, and I learned how to effectively, it's one of the things that you learn as a small team leader, is learning how to take care of people mm-hmm. and how to manage, and everything from what happens if PFC Schmuckatelli doesn't pack enough socks for this field op, right? There's minor annoyance things like he's going to get a blister and he's going to complain about it for the next 3 days.
Right.
And now, that's minor annoyance to everything from, hey, so-and-so doesn't know not to smoke around the ammunition truck and that could blow us up and get us killed.
Yeah.
Slight problem.
Yeah. Slight problem.
Slight. Yeah. But so my specific job in the Marine Corps was calculating angles of fire directions for the M777 howitzer, which fires a 155 millimeter shell. It's a big round. It weighs about 100 pounds, and it makes a big boom. And one of the first field ops I was on, thank God I was not in the FDC when this fire mission went off, but one of the first field ops I was on, there was a fire mission that got called in, and it was somewhere along the way, somewhere in the chain of command, the signals got crossed, and they shot something like 800 meters off target. And it's a really good thing that fire mission didn't happen 20 minutes later, because there would have been a whole infantry company right there.
Oh, wow.
So it's one of those things that, like, even in a training environment, that making mistakes, not paying attention to detail, not making sure your fail safes and redundancies are there, can cost people's lives. Mm-hmm. So it's everything from a minor annoyance, like I said, Schmuckatelli isn't drinking enough water. How can I fix that? To, major things like things that could cost people's lives. So yeah, that's kind of, and when I realized that there's a way to quantify that and put that into math, it kind of clicked for me. That was something that interested me. And so now I coming back to Appalachia, coming back to here, where I was with Comparion Insurance for a while. I have nothing but good things to say about them. But I realized that I wanted to do more than just sell insurance, and I wanted to have a broader and bigger impact on the community and help build more resilience than just providing an insurance policy.
I think it's really insightful to hear a story on that side of military life as well, because I think, just like anything, if you don't know something, you automatically go to like what you've seen, and what most people see is like television, movies, and so they think when military, it's war. That's the only thing. My brother's in the Air Force, and so he works in logistics, and so even then, looking at all the things he's doing, he's learning so many skills that are a lot more transferable than people really have given credit to. So big props. Thank you for, service and doing all of those things. Big props to actually having all the things there. Having a military brother coming from military family, I can also understand where it's like, this isn't always for everyone. It takes a right person to have a full career there. But so now that you're back, what are you looking with Fonseca Insurance that you want to be doing that it's going to kind of set you apart, that's going to be different for you than someone walking into one? I don't know if you can actually walk into an Aflac store around here, but like what's the difference in that?
Well, there's a huge difference between us and Aflac. I'll say that.
Yeah.
So Aflac does a lot of short-term disabilities. We don't really do a whole lot of that. If we need to advise on that, we can also get refer out. Like anything that we don't do, we have a lot of business relationships we like to refer out to. That's kind of the name of the game with managing risk, because I wouldn't say I can't build websites. I can code, but I can't, do both. I can't be your risk manager and be your website developer, but I can refer out to somebody. I can refer out to, we don't do financial planning, but I know someone who can. I know I can get you to, I can get your company in the hands of someone who can manage your employees' 401ks really well, 401ks, 401bs, whatever. But in terms of how we're different, the main thing is that we're beyond an insurance agency. We are trying to manage risk. That's the biggest thing, is that the insurance is a tool in our belt for managing the risk for the company. Now, where we might be different from other risk management firms, a lot of other risk management firms don't sell insurance. They don't write insurance. And the reason being is because there's a lot of compliance issues with that. How much and some of them do, but a lot of the time they are going to reserve their services for a larger client. There's not a lot of them out there that are going to want to work with a mom and pop store, that are going to want to work with a entry tier. What's the base membership? The classic membership.
The classic tier, yeah.
So they may not necessarily want to work with your classic tier Montgomery County Chamber member, because they're going to be targeting larger firms. They're going to be targeting larger operations and larger companies. Which makes sense. I understand. But at the same time, like the larger companies probably have a little bit less to lose with a lot of those risks. Maybe the impact on a small company of the same risk is going to be a lot more. And so the people who really need that are going to be your classic Montgomery County Chamber members. And that we're able to come in at a much lower price point for the risk management services, based on the fact that we're also writing the insurance policies and comparing with 160 carriers to.
So I've heard this a lot, that when you're sitting down, you're talking to your insurance agent, less information is better, because there's certain things you can say that are going to change your premium price. There's certain things. When you're looking at that from someone who's trying to mitigate risk to a certain degree, what are your thoughts? What are your opinions? What's your advice there? Because it's
I disagree
Okay.
wholeheartedly with that. And the reason being is because of this. So yes, in a sense, I know where that's coming from. So when you talk about auto and home insurance, there are some people that are under the impression, if I tell you that I have a wood stove in my house, my premium's going up. If I tell you I've got a trampoline in the house, my premiums are going up, or not in the house, but
if you've got one in the house,
if you got one in the house, live your best life. I mean, like you can afford whatever insurance, if you got a trampoline room or whatever. But if I've got a swimming pool, trampoline, with all these different factors that play into that, you might think, okay, my premium's going up, so let me just keep my mouth shut about that. It's the same mentality that I was told to have when I walked into a recruiting office for the Marine Corps. It's like, keep your mouth shut. If it's not on paper, it doesn't exist. When in reality, this goes back to what is good, true, and beautiful. So that truth piece, right? So I'm a big proponent of being upfront and honest because, because here's the thing. Like, let's say the best example and probably the most common example I found of this is people not telling the insurance company that they are on Airbnb. So will an insurance company pay a claim based on, hey, we had some Airbnbers staying at our house and they slipped, they tripped and broke their ankle and now they're suing. Will they pay that claim? Maybe, but they don't have to.
Right.
They don't have to. And so it might save you some premium in the short term, but it's not going to actually protect you the way that it needs to when it's time to make that claim.
Because for example, if someone has a pool, they don't disclose any of that, and something happens with the pool, the company could come back and say, look, because this was not there, we can't pay out on it.
Yeah, I mean, they have every right to do that because there's multiple types of lying, right? So you have a straight up lie, which is where someone just tells something that's false. Yeah. You have a jocose lie where we're lying, but I'm lying to you about that you don't find about your surprise party. There's nothing unethical about something like that. But a lie of concealment when we're talking about insurance, especially on an insurance application, a lie of concealment, especially if that's considered just as unethical as if you had lied. Right. And you're just as liable. So not only can there be an issue of potential for them to not pay out the claim, but if it's a big enough deal, it could be grounds for someone to be charged with something like insurance fraud. It just really depends on the situation. And so that's not something that I ever advise my clients to say, let me conceal things. No. The other thing too is we're risk managers. I want to know everything. Yeah. And and also I have 160 carriers. So maybe the carrier I want to put you with says no, or maybe they raise your premium a little too high for your comfort. I've got others. I'll find the right fit, right? There's a right fit out there for everybody.
Yeah. So this is entirely not related to success, anything like that. But when you're looking at some of those old myths, my son has a red car, premium is going to be higher. Are there any of those things that people have this conception of that are true and they can look at as they're trying to purchase for their, kids?
There might have been, I don't know. There might have been some underwriter somewhere that said red car bad, like maybe, but in reality, not really. I mean, everything's based on there's a lot of other factors out there that are better predictors of how many claims someone's going to have. The main thing is how many claims have they already filed, and that applies to personal insurance, business, agricultural, like no matter what it is, how many claims have they filed? That's the biggest determining factor as to, which is one of the reasons why I don't like telling people, let's go with a lower deductible because, a higher deductible might actually make more sense. Yeah. Because you don't need to make a claim for every little thing. If it's $100 in damage, do you really need to make a claim? You're probably going to see an insurance increase more than that $100. So
I've seen some of that personally where we had a drone. It was covered through insurance that I ended up wrecking it. And then when I got down and was looking, I was like, well, I'm going to pay $500 and then they would replace it. But it cost $700. Does that make sense for me to actually go in and do the claim, or should I just pay the $700 and not increase any of my rates?
Probably not. So, yeah. I mean, I imagine your insurance because I imagine with drones, I'm sure you probably have to have FAA
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
so
have to have that certification.
in which case, and so there's probably some liability pieces there too.
Uh-huh.
So really the core of an insurance policy like that is the liability. It's to help you, it's to protect you from getting sued.
Yeah.
Not so much to protect your actual property.
Right.
Which that can be an added benefit. Like if you had a drone that was $5,000, that might have been a different story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
A whole different story.
Yeah. But yeah, if you got, your DJI, which I don't know what you had, but it was like, your standard $200 DJI from Walmart, you probably aren't really getting insurance to protect the property itself.
Right. Yeah. Any other pieces of advice you want to give people? Any misconceptions you want to address while we're here?
Misconceptions.
Because I feel like insurance is one of those industries. So often you'll hear people just immediately go to, oh, insurance is a scam. Insurance is, and
yeah,
I don't agree with that.
Sure.
But is there anything like those lines that you want to kind of get in front of or talk about?
I mean, I think we've come a long way. I think from the 1980s and 90s where it was really common to think it was a scam. But in a certain sense, there are some misconceptions out there regarding, like, for instance, especially on the commercial side, a lot of people think that you have to wait till the end of your policy to switch. And therefore, once it renews, if you waited too long, well, you're out of luck. And now you've got to pay your year's premium. And then next year, maybe you can find somebody a little better. If something is going to help your bottom line, some insurance contracts may have a penalty for switching, but very often it's not the case. And very often what we're seeing is you can switch in the middle of a term. The main thing is just making sure that, number one, the agent you're switching with is going to be there for you. Because when it comes to the commercial side of things, you really need an agent that's on top of things. And then when it comes to, and then the other thing is making sure that the company that you're switching have a good reason, right? So rate shopping and hopping rate isn't necessarily the best idea all the time, but that's something that maybe you want to save for renewal. But when it comes to, if you're having an issue with your insurance company, maybe they've denied a claim, and that's not sitting well with you, switch. Like find a better fit, because I promise you, there's someone out there that has a better appetite for your business. There's some out there that for whatever reason, they won't do air duct cleanings. They don't want to insure anybody that cleans air ducts. Well, there's another company out there that loves it. It has to do with, what is their appetite for risk.
Where can everybody find Fonseca Insurance if you want to get out for more information?
FonsecaInsurance.com. Simple as that. My email is Matthew@FonsecaInsurance. If for some reason my inbox is full or something like that, and I'm swamped, my wife, Kate, who's here with us today, Kate at Fonseca Insurance is also valid. And then, my number is listed on the website as well. So you can, anywhere like that.
Awesome.
Don't send me a Facebook message. It will get lost. Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Well, I will mention right before we go, speaking of good, beautiful, true, you might have heard a little bit of mewing just off screen here, but you just welcomed a new little peanut.
Yeah.
You want to tell us about that at all?
Yeah. Our son Gabriel was born earlier this month in July, on July 10th. And he is, he is a gorgeous child. So we're happy to have him, and we're really, so if you heard him in the background, that's who he was. Yeah, he's really the reason he's the reason I'm doing this.
Good.
He's the reason I'm in business.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much. Hello, Gabriel. Thank you for being here with us. Any last pieces you want to leave people off with?
No.
All right, great.
No, not at all.
We covered it all. Well, make sure you reach out to the website for more information. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Kate, for being here as well. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. We will be back with you next week. In the meantime, go out, invest, connect, engage, and prosper.